An open letter to terrorists. Dear fellow humans, some time ago I watched the launch of the Space Shuttle Discovery. The event was so captivating and exhilarating. There was a sense of uplift and accomplishment and a feeling of success at human achievement. The feeling of elation was beyond expression. All of mankind had reached a landmark of progress and self-improvement. It strengthened my conviction in the human effort and its fruitful result for humanity as a whole. Around the same time, I watched another event, and it was the London bombings. The effect of that had been just the reverse. It was sadness, remorse, and dejection. Perhaps not so much at the reason for the act as to its means and method. The event left a very bad taste in the mouth because it showed the other side of human nature, that of man's intellectual degradation and self-abasement. We humans are capable of so much in this world. We have achieved such lofty heights as travel into outer space and such lowly depths as self-destruction. We are capable of both construction and destruction, rise as much as fall. Which of these things we are destined for and aim to achieve? The destiny we choose for ourselves is eventually in our hands. Will we, as an evolved creation of nature, further the frontiers of human achievement, or limit our own creative abilities and eventually destroy all that has been achieved? This will largely depend on our own thoughts and ideas, and finally the choice of our actions. True, the result of most action cannot be predicted beforehand, yet the intention behind the act is one's grasp. If the intention is constructive, then the route to follow will have to be evolutionary, because most constructive acts are rather time-consuming, difficult to come by, and are collective in nature. The launch into space did not come about in the wink of an eye. Devoted, painstaking effort on a collective level, chipped in by honest and humble human effort, brought about the event. The London bombings, on the other hand, were the outcome of meticulous, secretive planning, stealth connivance, distorted belief, and unleashing of cool, calculated vengeance. Or perhaps the blind effort of distorted belief. It may yet have been an act of twisted devotion and the premeditated taking of one's own life along with others, for a preconceived and an unknown reward. The theory behind a revolutionary or destructive act is usually to eradicate the existing order and to replace it by a new and radically different scenario. This mode of action sometimes tends to forget that the establishment and strength of an ideology does not come from the way it is implemented, but from the inherent qualities of the idea itself. It is the idea that is the driving force and not the mode or means of establishing it. Also, perhaps, the novelty of the idea alone is not the assurance of its success. Its timing and need of the environment is an important prerequisite for it to be established and durably entrenched. To achieve this, the selling of the idea is an important element in its promotion and propagation. Forcing a bitter pill down the throat is difficult, and so most medicine is sugar-coated to make it palatable. If there is hope in the efficacy of the drug, it will be accepted even with some side effects, with an understanding that its beneficial action will eventually help cure the malady. All effort is made and treatment taken with a hope and faith only in cure and betterment, not for destruction or death. For once death comes, all effort ends, and no one knows for sure what the future may have in store. It is merely a conjecture and speculation to say that this or that happens after death. There is no proof or guarantee, as no one has yet brought back any. Faith and belief are the primary means of humans to put the mental and intellectual misgivings to rest. If we have faith that goodness will eventually overcome evil, we would use the common good of humanity to fight the ills of society. Constructive action is one common goodness that can fight the evil of both within and without. Destruction is the common evil we have to avoid, for it leads to the blind alley of the unknown. Religious thought, as discussed elsewhere, has itself developed and changed with human progress. The fundamentalists who practice religion in its most rigid form tend to stunt the growth of mental curiosity and intellectual probe, because they limit and restrain man at a lower level and God at a higher and altogether different station of abode. The one becomes the creator and controller, and the other the subjugated and helplessly controlled. Also, religious orthodoxy inbreeds stagnation and unconscious ritualistic repetition. The natural outcome of unquestioned and blind ritual practice is introversive and becomes an end in itself, rather than being expressive, exploratory, and a means to an end, that is, to lead towards self-uplift and personal growth, which must surely have been its primary aim for all creation. Further, religious fundamentalism has negation as its basis, for it promotes religion by saying, "Don't do this, this is not allowed, this is against the rules," etc., etc. Whereas the main aim of religious education should perhaps be to guide to the basis and the underlying need of various religious thought processes and disciplines. They should be able to advise how the practice of the ritual can lead towards its aim of moral uplift and character building, which is essential for struggle and survival of a humane race, and the eventual end game of good conquering evil. Constructive religious thought should be able to explain how the prayer is a road to the health and emancipation of the faculties of mind, body, and soul, the triad of human existence. That its essence lies not in performing of certain tenets, but in effect the releasing of the constructive juices of each one's personality and harmonizing the functions of the triad, so that one may gain fresher ideas and thoughts and grasp newer concepts, which would open and liberate the intellect rather than confine it. Religious education should be a means of accepting reality rather than fighting it. It should teach to welcome rather than reject realistic change. It should be educative and helpful in training humans to be able to harness their animal nature and direct it towards humanism and progress, and to eventually overcome the barbarism of within. The core message of all religions is the same basic axioms of humanity. It is common observation that the basic instinct of a living being is to preserve life, its own first and then of the species. We humans, who are definitely more evolved than other creation, are so because of our mind and intellect. These give us the edge and a capacity to consciously change both ourselves and also our surroundings. If The change we bring about is in agreement with nature's plan and its basic laws of cause and effect, we will move towards progress. If, however, we try to interfere and disturb the balance of the natural scheme of things, we will meet our own downfall and annihilation. This is so because it is in the nature of nature to self-preserve and self-perpetuate. A little closer study of humanity through history shows that humans continue to have the same basic animal instincts they have always possessed, both good and bad. For example, the instinct of curiosity, competition, instinct of self-preservation, protection, destruction, etc. Only those who have been able to understand and canalize these natural behaviors have stepped ahead and furthered the cause of the entire human race. It may be questioned whether humans have really progressed. They are still the most brutal and ruthless of creatures. They still have uncontrolled lust and in reality have furthered their lustful pursuits, and so on and so forth. While all this is perhaps true, it may be pointed out that the basic instinct of human beings, because of their animal origin, will remain and continue to follow them. It is at the level of intellect that we can develop and advance, and its control over instincts improved. This comes about through the progressive and refining process of genetic inheritance coupled with the reforming aspect of knowledge and education. The advance or progress can thus be made at the level of thought. If the thought or intellect progresses, it will lead to a conscious improvement of the word and then eventually the deed. For otherwise, unconscious and untamed action is nothing but raw animal behavior. Now, when intellectual development takes place, higher concepts can be grasped and understood and eventually put to use, contributing in the forward push of the frontiers of human achievement. Human beings, like most creation, are constantly evolving. Man has come a long way from the cave, and his way of doing things has radically changed. Further, the globe is not a patchwork of self-contained units as it was in the past. Technology and development has shrunk its size and brought down many natural and man-made barriers. It is now rapidly transforming into a global village. No part of it can live in isolation and not be influenced by the happenings in other areas. The methods and techniques of the old world have changed and will continue to. Physical wars, which were rampant among nations in the earlier centuries, have definitely decreased in number. It may be said that the world has taken up other kinds of wars, like economic, cultural, or wars of ideas. The total eliminations of wars is, however, an impossibility, because man, who basically possesses animal traits, will not be completely free of them. Hate, anger, and jealousies will continue to haunt us, but their intensity and effect can be channelized and harnessed with knowledge and education, coupled with the reasoning power of the mind. It is also nonetheless a human trait to have an intellect, the very tool which can make him self-educate and improve. Like everything else, intellect shows two sides. It can lead to creativity or destruction, depending on the use it is put to. The basis of intellect is thoughts, and they can be both good and bad. Good thoughts originate in positive ideas and bad thoughts in negative ones. Positive ideas promote constructive change, and negative ones lead to destruction and annihilation. Positivists are generally believers in themselves and the rest of mankind, whereas negativists are basically full of doubt and deception. They doubt themselves, all mankind, and are not sure of its purpose in the natural phenomena. Common sense prompts that the end of the world scene is perhaps not a cataclysmic destruction of the earth, as the planet itself may be a living entity as per the hypothesis of Gaia. The end may be the end of the human life as we know it today, yet the cosmos itself may evolve to something else. To what and how it will transform cannot be said with any certainty. Here, your guess is as good as mine. But since it has changed over the ages, it shall presumably transform into something else in the future. From a positivist's point of view, it should improve, get better and advance. From a negativist's angle, it should shrivel up and disintegrate. Our own activities on it will definitely play a part in the shaping of things to come. One of the positive effects of the intellect is to learn from experience and utilize the knowledge gained for furthering the cause of the species and helping to bring about progress. Destruction and demolition are usually not positive traits. Readjustment and refinement are. To eliminate and destroy an existing order would be to truncate and cut short any progress that may have been made so far. Real progress and durable change, as said earlier, require evolutionary means. It is accepted by everyone that peace is a better road to take than war. We humans may have to learn it the hard way. The wars being presently fought are being increasingly exposed for their futility and insincerity of purpose. They will in the end leave the aggressor more exhausted, fruitlessly consumed by bloated avarice, perhaps a loser in the long run. The future cannot be predicted, but the past can be reflected upon and lessons drawn from history. What we need to do in this shrinking world is to pool our strengths of information and knowledge and to promote broad-based exchange of ideas for a common goal. We must learn from the lessons of history to develop democracy and avoid unilateral dictatorial decisions, and to learn to consult and cooperate and avoid coercion and force. The world bodies like the Leagues of Nations have given way to more evolved and international organizations as the United Nations. True, the existing setup itself does not seem to be an ideal organization, but it too is evolving and is bound to change to accept the realities of the shrinking world. The classic media of the screen and the press have been virtually overhauled due to globalization. The World Wide Web and the Internet have developed into sources of multidimensional communication. This has made each of us both more independent yet more dependent on each other. As each one of us are able to directly participate in many events as they occur on the globe. Such a possibility was not dreamed of until quite recently. The full potential of this tool has perhaps yet to be fathomed, and much more interaction and exchange at the individual level is yet to come about. With more independence comes more freedom. Yet to every action there is an equal and balancing reaction. And more freedom will entail more responsibility and self-restraint. In the long run, each of us will be held far more responsible for our actions than was ever possible in the past. The only way to sustain further growth would be to voluntarily share and give rather than grab or coerce. To share, each of us will have to make conscious and willing sacrifice from whatever we possess or are capable of acquiring. So far, the world has managed to survive on the theory of survival of the fittest. It must soon realize that the fittest would be one who not only makes the most, but who is willing to part with the most of the surplus for the benefit of the species as a whole. One's fitness will now have to be gauged on the scale of sharing and giving rather than acquiring and accumulating. This change of attitude will first require a change of heart and mind at the level of each individual. We have to learn to understand the difference and the correlation between passion and capability, emotion and stability, the independence and interdependence. In a nutshell, human beings have to learn to maintain a voluntary balance between desire and need, which has been fully exploited by the evils of marketing by promoting our desires and making us succumb to them as if they were really our needs. In short, we have to learn not only to live but also to keep each other alive at the same time. It is in the above scenario that each of us has to adjust and knowingly and willingly change our ways, for we will be ready to change them only if we know and realize that we must change them. We have to persevere to preserve and not pervert what we have. What goes around comes around. Destruction breeds and perpetuates itself. Democracy is the only way to the future, and it will have to flourish if the world is to survive as a single unit for human existence. The old mode and means of governance and power play are bound to cave in if the human race is to survive in the change and transformation that is taking place at the global scene. True, that democracy itself is in a state of evolution and must readjust in the favor of the have-nots, as the haves till now have had more than their share. We, each of us, can now play our part and give our opinion in the matter of readjustment, as this concerns every single one of us. But again, we must remember that we should agree to disagree in ideas only, for we will have to agree to a joint act to preserve the species as a whole. This, as said earlier, is imperative because from a positivist's approach, the human species is perhaps not created for unfounded annihilation. For if it were so, the whole exercise of creationism would become meaningless. It only makes logical sense if it were founded on the ideas of progress and evolution into the next higher stage of existence. Self-inflicted destruction is not the answer. Self-preservation is the key to the fulfillment of this prophecy. With good wishes from a fellow human, Ziauddin Ahmed. Tidy link at yahoo.com.